The great hall fell silent as the ancient creature moved forward. Elder Thaz was old, older than anyone could properly count. His skin had the texture of cracked stone, and his eyes held memories of 1,000 wars. The younger species, gathered in the Galactic Council chambers, watched him with barely hidden impatience. "You do not understand what you have invited into our galaxy," Thaz said, his voice like grinding rocks. "The humans are not what they appear to be." Ambassador Wu stood quietly near the back of the hall. She was human, small, and unremarkable compared to the towering aliens around her. Her dark hair was tied back simply, and she wore a plain blue uniform. Next to her, Captain Day kept his hands clasped behind his back, his face showing nothing. Commander Vix of the Krell Empire laughed. It was a harsh, barking sound that echoed through the chamber. The Krell were massive beings, covered in natural armor plating, with 4 arms and strength that could bend steel. Vix stood nearly 3 meters tall. "Elder, with respect, you have grown fearful in your old age," Vix said, still chuckling. "These humans are soft. They have no claws, no armor, no venom. They are weak creatures who hide behind their machines." Other species murmured in agreement. The insectoid Kikstari clicked their mandibles in what might have been laughter. The Zilvana, tall and graceful with their silver skin, smiled knowingly. They had toppled empires through trade and manipulation. What could these newcomers possibly do to them? Thaz closed his ancient eyes. "I was there," he said softly, 200 of their years ago when we first met them. "I was young then, serving on a research vessel." "We thought as you do now. What happened?" asked a young Velkari in the crowd, one of Thaz's own species. "We found their world by accident," Thaz continued. "A small planet, mostly water, with a thin atmosphere. The humans were just beginning to reach their own moon. We studied them from orbit for 3 of their years. We saw their wars, their violence, their divisions. We thought them primitive and chaotic." Pilot Nari, a young human woman, stood near the entrance. She had been assigned to fly the Elder shuttle to this meeting. She listened carefully, curious about what the old alien would say about her people. "A group of younger species, foolish like you, decided to land and take samples," Thaz said. "They were Krell, as it happens. Your ancestors, Commander Vix. They thought it would be simple. The humans had primitive weapons. The Krell had armor and technology." Vix's expression changed slightly, becoming more serious. "The humans tracked the landing party for 6 days," Thaz continued. "Through forests, across mountains, through their cities. The Krell thought they were being clever, staying hidden. But the humans were hunters. They had been persistent predators on their world for millions of years. They did not give up. They did not sleep. They just kept coming." The hall had grown very quiet now. When the Krell finally tried to return to their shuttle, the humans were waiting. They had studied the Krell, learned their patterns, and set a trap. The Krell had superior weapons and armor. It did not matter. The humans had turned their entire environment into a weapon. They used their own primitive explosives, their machines, even their weather against the landing party. "Surely the Krell won," Vix said. But his voice was uncertain now. 3 Krell escaped, Thaz said. "Of 20. And do you know what the humans did then? They did not kill the survivors. They sent them back to orbit with a message. Come in peace, or don't come at all. The Krell Empire, in its pride, sent a warship. The humans had gone from barely reaching their moon to building orbital defense platforms in 6 months. They had taken the Krell technology they captured and made it better." Ambassador Wu smiled slightly, but said nothing. "The war lasted 3 years," Thaz continued. "The Krell kept expecting the humans to surrender. Humans do not have that word in the way you understand it. Every defeat made them stronger. Every loss taught them something new. They turned their entire industrial civilization toward one goal: survival. By the end, young Krell warriors were afraid to go to Earth. The humans had earned a reputation. "This is ancient history," said Sekthar, the Zilvana trade prince. His voice was smooth and dismissive. "These modern humans are civilized. They seek trade and diplomacy." "Yes," Thaz said, turning his ancient eyes to the Zilvana. "They learned diplomacy. They learned trade. They learned our ways. And that is what makes them truly dangerous. They learn everything. They adapt to everything. They never stop improving." Captain Day finally spoke, his voice calm and even. "The Elder honors us with his concern. We seek only friendship with all species." "I do not doubt your intentions, Captain," Thaz said kindly. "I doubt everyone else's wisdom in testing you. Because they will test you. They always do. And humans have a saying, 'Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me.' You do not get a second chance to underestimate humanity." The meeting ended in uncomfortable silence. As the various species filed out, many were already making plans. The Krell thought about claiming disputed territory. The Zilvana calculated trade advantages. The Kikstari saw a new food source. Nari walked with Ambassador Wu back to their shuttle. "Ma'am, was the Elder telling the truth? Did all that really happen?" Wu looked out at the stars through the corridor windows. "Every word. And they're going to test us anyway. They always do. What do we do when they come?" "What we always do, Nari," Wu said quietly. "We survive. We adapt. We win. And then we offer them friendship. Because that's who we are." In the shadows of the Great Hall, Elder Thaz watched the humans leave. He had tried to warn them. He had done his duty. Now he could only wait and see if anyone had listened. Deep in his ancient heart, he already knew the answer. They never listened. And the humans would teach them why they should have. The mining colony on Tau Ceti 7 was not much to look at. 300 humans lived there, working the rich mineral deposits in the rocky ground. The main settlement was just a cluster of prefabricated buildings around a central dome. Children went to school in the morning. Families ate dinner together in the evening. It was peaceful and ordinary. Taejin had been colony administrator for 5 years. He was a quiet man who preferred solving problems with spreadsheets rather than speeches. That morning, he was reviewing supply requests when the alarm started screaming. "Krell warships in orbit," announced the defense system. "Multiple vessels. They are broadcasting a message." Taejin ran to the command center. On the main screen, War Chief Drax appeared. The massive Krell leader looked even more intimidating on the display, his forearms crossed over his armored chest. "Humans," Drax growled. "You build on Krell territory. This world belongs to the Empire. You have 6 hours to evacuate. Leave everything. Go." Taejin took a deep breath. "War Chief, this colony has been here for 12 years. The territory surveys showed no Krell claims. The surveys were wrong. 6 hours. Then we take what is ours." The screen went dark. Marine Seungho arrived within minutes. He was the head of colony security, a stocky man with a scarred face and calm eyes. Behind him came 30 other security personnel, which was the colony's entire defense force. "We need to evacuate the civilians," Seungho said immediately. "Agreed," Taejin replied. "Get the transports ready. Children and non-essential personnel first. Anyone who can't fight leaves now." Dr. Hannah was already organizing the medical center for evacuation. She was a small woman with quick hands and a sharp mind. "The injured can't be moved safely in 6 hours," she said. "I'm staying with them, Hannah," Taejin started. "I'm staying," she repeated firmly. "We'll convert the medical center to a backup command post. Someone needs to coordinate if the main center falls." By the end of 4 hours, 240 colonists were off-world. 60 remained, including the injured who couldn't travel and volunteers who refused to leave. Taejin had asked for volunteers who could fight. Almost everyone had raised their hands. He had to turn people away. The Krell came exactly on schedule. Their landing craft descended like falling mountains, crushing equipment and buildings beneath them. Drax led his warriors out personally, expecting to find an empty colony ready for claiming. Instead, the first squad walked into a minefield made from mining explosives. The blast sent 4 Krell flying. Before they could recover, converted mining lasers opened fire from hidden positions. The lasers were designed to cut through rock. Krell armor was tough, but the focus beams found weak points. They dare resist? Drax roared in surprise and fury. Warriors advance. Crush them. Seung-ho watched from his position in the maintenance tunnels below the colony. The humans had spent the last 4 hours preparing the battlefield. Every building was trapped. Every corridor had firing positions. The mining tunnels beneath the surface became a network of hidden passages. Remember the plan, Seung-ho said calmly into his communicator. Hit and move. Don't stay in one place. Make them chase you. The Krell were stronger and better armed, but the humans knew the colony like they knew their own homes. A Krell squad would breach a building, only to find it empty. Then explosives would detonate, bringing the structure down on them. The Krell would pursue into the tunnels, where the narrow spaces negated their size advantage. On the 3rd day, Drax cut the power to the colony. He expected this to break human morale. Instead, the humans fought better in the darkness. They had trained for this. They used thermal imaging and moved silently through tunnels they had memorized. The Krell, dependent on their technology, stumbled in the dark. A week passed. Then 2 weeks. The Krell kept expecting surrender. It never came. Seung-ho was injured on day 15 when a tunnel collapsed. A piece of metal pierced his left leg. Dr. Hana pulled him into the medical center and patched him up with steady hands. You need to rest, she said. We all need rest, Seung-ho replied. We rest when we win. On day 20, Drax broadcast another message demanding surrender. Taejin responded personally from the damaged command center. He looked tired, covered in dust and dried blood from a minor cut, but his voice was steady. War Chief, we will not surrender. You cannot win, Drax bellowed. We are warriors of the Empire. You are miners and farmers. We are humans, Taejin said simply. And this is our home. Seung-ho stood beside him, leaning on a makeshift crutch. When Drax demanded they surrender again, Seung-ho smiled grimly and said, We haven't even started getting creative yet. The Krell war chief actually paused at that. He was starting to understand something his ancestors had learned centuries ago. The siege continued. The Krell took casualties every day. The humans kept fighting. They turned water systems into traps. They used oxygen equipment as weapons. They made explosives from mining chemicals. Every piece of civilian equipment became a tool of war. On day 40, a child in the medical center asked Dr. Hana when the fighting would stop. Hana looked at the young boy and said gently, When we win, honey. Humans don't lose our homes. By day 60, the Krell had lost over 100 warriors. They had expected to lose perhaps 5 at most. Drax's superiors were demanding answers. How could a mining colony resist the Empire for 2 months? On day 90, human reinforcements arrived. 3 warships dropped out of hyperspace, carrying 2,000 Marines. But they found something surprising. The Krell were already retreating. The colonists had broken their will to fight. Seung-ho watched from the surface as the Krell landing craft lifted off. His leg was still healing, and he would always walk with a slight limp now. Taejin stood beside him, looking at their destroyed colony. We helped, Taejin said quietly. We did more than that, Seung-ho replied. We won. When the Marine commander came down to meet them, she found 60 humans, dirty and exhausted and triumphant. They had defended their home with nothing but determination and creativity. War Chief Drax never returned to that sector of space. In his reports, he did not mention defeat. He wrote only, "The Elder was correct. Do not underestimate humans." But by then, other species were already making their own plans to test humanity. They had not learned. Not yet. Trade Prince Sekthar of the Zilvana was a patient hunter. He did not use weapons or armies. He used contracts and interest rates and market manipulation. Over 3 centuries, he had destroyed 7 civilizations without firing a single shot. Now he turned his attention to humanity. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. First, flood human markets with cheap goods. Then, once humans became dependent on those goods, slowly raise prices while offering generous loans. The debt would grow. Eventually, entire human worlds would belong to the Zilvana through economic control. It had worked every time before. Jinwoo was a trade coordinator for the human commercial fleet. He worked in a small office on the trading station orbiting Jupiter, watching market data scroll across his screens. He was good with numbers, able to see patterns that others missed. And he was seeing a very troubling pattern. "The prices don't make sense," he said to his supervisor. "The Zilvana are selling at a loss. No one does that unless they're planning something." His supervisor shrugged. "So we buy cheap goods. That's good for us, isn't it?" "Maybe," Jinwoo said, but he kept watching the data. Rena captained a small freight hauler called the Morning Star. She had been hauling cargo between human colonies for 15 years, and she knew the trade routes like the back of her hand. Lately, she noticed something odd. Zilvana goods were everywhere, and human manufacturers were going out of business. She met with other captains at a way station bar. "Anyone else seeing this?" she asked. "The Zilvana are taking over every market." "Good for business," one captain said. "More cargo to haul, is it?" Rena asked. "What happens when all our factories close? When we depend on them for everything?" Most of the captains went back to their drinks, but a few stayed to talk. They started sharing information, watching the patterns. Meanwhile, Bio worked as an engineer at a struggling manufacturing plant on Mars. The facility made power cells for ships and stations, but they couldn't compete with cheap Zilvana imports. The plant was scheduled to close in 3 months. Bio didn't want to lose his job. But more than that, he didn't want to see human manufacturing die. He started experimenting in the plant after hours, trying to find a better way to make power cells. His supervisor found him there one night, working on a new design. "Bio, the plant is closing." "Let it go." "Not yet," Bio said, not looking up from his work. "I think I can make this work with 1/3 the materials. It won't beat Zilvana prices now, but if their prices go up I think they will." The supervisor looked at Bo's designs. "Show me what you've got." 6 months into the Zilvana economic strategy, Sekthar was pleased. Human industries were failing. Humans were buying Zilvana goods in massive quantities. It was time for Phase 2. Prices began to rise, slowly at first. At the same time, Zilvana banks offered generous loans to human colonies and corporations. The interest rates seemed reasonable. The contracts seemed fair. Sekthar knew that in 5 years, the compounding interest would make the debt impossible to repay. Jinwoo saw it happening and called an emergency meeting with other trade coordinators across human space. They met through secure channels, comparing data. "This is a debt trap," Jinwoo explained, showing them the projections. "In 5 years, we'll owe them more than we can ever pay. They'll own us. What do we do?" Someone asked. "We pretend we don't notice," Jinwoo said. "We keep buying their goods. We take their loans. But at the same time, We build alternatives. That will take years, another coordinator protested. Good thing we're patient. Jin Woo replied with a slight smile. Rena began coordinating an underground network of human traders. They started moving raw materials and finished goods between human worlds, avoiding Zilvana-controlled markets. It was inefficient at first, but they were learning. They called it the backdoor network. Her crew thought she was paranoid. Why go through all this trouble? Her first officer asked. Zilvana goods are cheap and reliable. For now, Rena said. But what happens when they're not? What happens when they're the only option? Bo's new power cell design worked. It was more efficient than the old human models and almost as good as Zilvana cells. The Mars plant stayed open with a skeleton crew, producing the new cells in small quantities. Bo shared his designs freely with other human engineers. Aren't you worried about competition? His supervisor asked. I'm worried about survival, Bo replied. We all need to make this. We all need to get better. Over the next 3 years, something unusual happened in human space. While publicly dependent on Zilvana goods, humans were quietly building their own alternatives. Engineers shared designs openly instead of hoarding patents. Manufacturers cooperated instead of competing. The backdoor network grew larger and more efficient. Sekthar noticed none of this. The humans were buying his goods, taking his loans, and getting deeper into debt exactly as planned. By year 4, the trap was ready to spring. Sekthar raised prices sharply and called in some of the smaller loans. He expected panic and chaos. Instead, something strange happened. Humans stopped buying Zilvana goods. Overnight, the market shifted. What is this? Sekthar demanded, staring at his market reports. His analysts scrambled to explain. The humans, they have alternatives. New technology. Their own supply networks. We didn't see it developing. That's impossible, Sekthar said. We monitored their industries. They were failing. They rebuilt in secret, the analyst said nervously. And they made everything open source. Every human manufacturer has access to the new designs. We can't compete with that. Jin Woo released a public statement that day. It was broadcast across human space and to all trading partners. His voice was calm and professional. The Zilvana trade strategy has been noted and countered, he said. We thank them for the lesson in economic warfare. In response, humanity is releasing all of our new technology patents freely. Any species can use our designs without cost. We believe in fair trade and open markets. The effect was immediate. Zilvana monopolies collapsed as other species gained access to human technology. The debt trap failed because humans simply stopped participating in the rigged system. Sekthar's carefully built economic empire began to crumble. Rena stood on the bridge of her ship, watching the news broadcasts. Her first officer looked stunned. We won? Just like that? Not just like that, Rena corrected. We won because a lot of people worked very hard in secret for years. We won because we learned to work together. And we won because we're stubborn. Badillo was offered a position as chief engineer at a major corporation. He turned it down and stayed at the Mars plant, continuing to develop new technologies and share them freely. When asked why, he said simply, this was never about getting rich. It was about staying free. Sekthar sent a message to the Human Trade Commission. It was brief and bitter. You were supposed to be easy prey. The elder warned us you were different. I should have listened. Jin Woo's response was equally brief. Yes, you should have. We're happy to trade fairly with anyone. But if you try to trap us, we'll just build our own path. That's what we do. The Zilvana withdrew from human space, their economy damaged and their reputation ruined. Other species watched and learned. Some learned the right lesson. Others did not. The Gigstari hive did not think like other species. It did not negotiate or trade. It consumed. For 10,000 years, the hive had spread across the galaxy, eating everything in its path. Dozens of civilizations had fallen to the endless swarm. The hive did not know fear because it had never met anything that could threaten it. When the hive mind turned its attention to human space, it saw only food. The first human colony to fall was New Perth. The attack came without warning. Thousands of insectoid creatures descended from orbit, their ships like giant wasps. They moved as one mind, perfectly coordinated, unstoppable. The colony's defense forces fought bravely, but were overwhelmed in hours. Captain Dayun received the distress call on her battleship, the Indomitable. She was 3 days away at maximum speed. By the time she arrived, New Perth was silent. The hive had taken everything, every human, every resource. Even the buildings had been stripped for raw materials. Dayun walked through the empty streets with her Marines. Nothing remained but bare ground. She had served in the military for 20 years and had never seen anything like this. Captain, we're detecting hive ships moving toward New Shanghai Colony, her tactical officer reported. ETA 12 hours. Set course, maximum speed, Dayun ordered. And send a message to Fleet Command. Tell them we need everything they can send. This is different from anything we've faced before. Xenobiologist Kiyan arrived on the Indomitable 2 days later with a team of scientists. She was a specialist in alien life forms, particularly hive-minded species. She had been studying the Gigstari from a safe distance for months. They communicate through pheromones and electromagnetic pulses, Kiyan explained to Dayun. Every individual is part of a greater whole, controlled by queens located in their larger ships. Kill drones, and they just make more. We need to target the queens. How many queens? Dayun asked. We've identified 7 in this swarm. Each one controls thousands of drones. On the ground at New Shanghai, Soldier Chan prepared the defenses. He was a veteran of the Krull conflict, a hard man with steady hands. He had 1,500 Marines and colonists who could fight. The hive was bringing 50,000 drones. We can't win this, his second-in-command said quietly. We don't have to win, Chan replied. We just have to hold until the fleet arrives. And we need to make them afraid. They don't feel fear. Chan smiled grimly. Then we'll teach them. The hive attacked at dawn. The first wave hit the outer defenses like a living tsunami. Drones died by the hundreds, but more kept coming. They climbed over their own dead without hesitation. But Chan's forces were ready. They had studied the recordings from New Perth. They knew how the hive moved, how it coordinated. They set up kill zones that forced the drones into narrow corridors. They used flamethrowers, which the hive particularly hated. And they began broadcasting false electromagnetic pulses on the hive's communication frequencies. On the Indomitable, Kiyan worked frantically at her console. I've mapped their communication patterns. If we can disrupt the signals between queens and drones, we can create confusion. Do it, Dayun ordered. The next wave of high drones suddenly lost coordination. They stumbled, crashed into each other, became disorganized. It only lasted a few minutes before the queens adapted, but those few minutes allowed Chan's forces to inflict massive casualties. The hive adapted faster than any enemy humans had faced before. They changed their communication frequencies. They altered their attack patterns. They learned to avoid the kill zones, but humans adapted too. Chan started using psychological tactics. He had his forces appear in unexpected places, creating patterns that made no logical sense. The hive had never faced an enemy that deliberately acted irrationally. It confused them. On day 3, Kiyan made a breakthrough. The queens are not just commanders. They're emotionally linked to their drones. When large numbers of drones die, the queens experience something like distress. Can we use that? Dayun asked. I think so. If we kill enough drones in a specific way, we might be able to cause the queen actual pain. They tested the theory in the next battle. Chan's forces lured a large group of drones into an enclosed area, then detonated massive explosives that killed thousands simultaneously. In space, monitoring equipment detected unusual signals from the hive ships. The queen is distressed, Ki-Yan reported. It's withdrawing drones to protect itself. For the first time in the hive's long history, a queen felt something like fear. The battle dragged on for weeks. The hive kept coming, but the attacks became less coordinated. The queens were being more cautious, and caution was not something the hive had ever needed to learn. The Yun coordinated with 6 other battleships that had arrived as reinforcements. They mapped the locations of all 7 queens in the swarm. Ki-Yan developed a weapon specifically designed to cause maximum distress to the hive mind. A combination of electromagnetic pulse and chemical agents that disrupted their neural networks. We hit them all at once, Dayun said during the strategy meeting. 7 targets, simultaneous strikes. We don't give them time to adapt or retreat. On the ground, Chan received his orders. Hold for 6 more hours. Then we end this. His forces were exhausted. They had been fighting for 20 days with little sleep. But they were human. They knew how to push beyond their limits. The final assault came at midnight. 7 human battleships struck 7 hive queens at exactly the same moment. Ki-Yan's weapon worked better than expected. The queens didn't just die, they suffered. And every drone in the swarm felt it through their link. The hive mind experienced something completely new. Panicked drones began retreating. Some became erratic, attacking each other. The coordinated swarm dissolved into chaos. Chan's forces pushed forward, driving the confused drones away from the colony in space. The surviving hive ships fled. They had lost 4 queens and their swarms. The remaining 3 queens retreated to deep space, broadcasting warnings in their complex language. Dayun stood on her bridge, watching the hive ships disappear. Did we just make the hive afraid? I think we did, Ki-Yan said, reviewing the data. They've been leaving messages in their wake. Warnings to other hive fleets. They're saying that humans are not prey. They're saying we're predators. Chan walked through New Shanghai after the battle ended. The colony was damaged but standing. His Marines were celebrating, but he felt too tired for celebration. A young soldier approached him. Sir, they say we're the first to ever make the hive retreat. Chan nodded slowly. The hive thought we were prey. We showed them they were wrong. That's what humans do. We turn predators into prey. The reports spread quickly through galactic communication networks. The HFY hive, unstoppable for 10,000 years, had fled from humanity. The remaining queens added their warnings to the galactic databases, right next to the warnings from the crow and the Zilvana. Still, some species refused to believe. They thought the warnings were exaggerations. They prepared their own plans to test humanity. They would learn, eventually. They all did. The Galactic Council chamber was in chaos. Representatives from 30 species shouted at each other, demanding action, placing blame, calling for investigations. The Crow delegation sat in angry silence. The Zilvana looked humiliated. Even the insectoid representatives of the HFY hive, rarely seen at council meetings, had sent observers. Elder Thez sat in his designated area and watched the chaos with ancient, knowing eyes. He had lived through this before with other species. Pride, then testing, then consequences, then panic. The cycle was always the same. The council speaker, a dignified member of the Valkyrie species, banged the ceremonial staff against the floor repeatedly, calling for order. "We must address the human situation systematically," the speaker announced. "The humans have attacked us," shouted the Krell representative, War Chief Drax's successor. "They destroyed our forces at Tau Ceti after you invaded their colony," countered a neutral observer. "The humans manipulated our economy," accused the Zilvana economic minister. "They deliberately crashed our markets after you tried to trap them in debt," another voice called out. The arguments continued. Finally, the speaker called for Elder Thaz to address the council. The old being rose slowly and moved to the central platform. The chamber fell silent. Even in chaos, the Ancient Ones commanded respect. "I warned you," Thaz said simply. His voice was quiet but carried through the chamber. 200 years ago, when humans first appeared in our galaxy, I warned you. Did you listen? Silence answered him. I told you that humans are persistent predators. I told you they never quit. I told you they adapt to everything. I told you they turn every defeat into a lesson. Did any of you listen? More silence. No, Daz continued. You looked at their soft skin and small size and decided I was a foolish old being. You decided to test them. The Krell tested their military strength. The Zilvana tested their economic resilience. The Kixtari tested their survival instinct. And what did you learn? Drax's successor spoke reluctantly. We learned that humans do not surrender. Even when we had overwhelming force, they kept fighting. They turned their entire colony into a weapon. The Zilvana minister added bitterly, we learned that humans cooperate when threatened. They share technology freely rather than hoard it. We could not compete with an entire species working together. The Kixtari observer clicked its mandibles and spoke in translated text. We learned that humans are apex predators, disguised as prey. They made our queens feel fear for the first time in our species' history. The chamber doors opened, and Admiral Yeon entered with a small delegation. The Admiral was an older human woman with gray hair and calm eyes. She moved with quiet confidence, not hurrying despite the attention focused on her. Beside her walked Ambassador Myra, a younger woman who carried a data tablet. Admiral Yeon, the speaker acknowledged. The Council was not expecting human representation at this emergency session. We heard there was discussion about humanity, Yeon said mildly. We thought we should attend. Thaz gestured for them to approach. Please, join me. These species have been sharing what they learned from testing humanity. Perhaps you should tell them what they still do not understand. Myra activated her tablet, and holographic displays appeared throughout the chamber. Images showed human children playing with alien children. Human doctors treating alien patients. Human engineers teaching alien students. You tested our strength, Myra said. You tested our economy. You tested our ability to fight. But you never asked about our values. Values mean nothing in war. The Krell representative growled, don't they? Yeon asked. She gestured to another display. During the siege at Tau Ceti, our colonists could have killed every Krell warrior. Instead, they sent your wounded back to you. During the economic conflict, we could have destroyed Zilvana completely. Instead, we offered fair trade. When the Hive attacked, we could have pursued and exterminated them. Instead, we let them retreat. You let enemies escape, the Krell said, confused. This is weakness. No, Elder Thaz said firmly. This is wisdom. Humans understand something most species never learn. Today's enemy can be tomorrow's friend. They fight when they must, but they prefer peace. This is what makes them truly dangerous. Myra brought up another display showing human psychology research. We bond with almost anything. We make friends with other species, with artificial intelligence, even with animals. We remember those who wrong us, but we forgive strategically. We never quit when we're defending what we love, but we also know when fighting serves no purpose. You're saying humans are merciful? The Zilvana minister asked skeptically. We're saying humans are complex, Eon replied. Yes, we can be merciful. We can also be absolutely ruthless when needed. We adapt our response to the situation. That's what you failed to understand. The elder nodded slowly. This is what I tried to explain 200 years ago. Humans are not simply warriors or traders or survivors. They are all of these things simultaneously. They will fight you to the death while offering you medical care. They will destroy your economy while teaching your children. They contain contradictions that other species cannot understand. This is madness, someone muttered. This is humanity, Thas corrected. Myra stepped forward. The elder warned you. You didn't listen. Now you face a choice. We can be your allies or we can remain separate. But you need to understand what alliance with humanity means. She brought up new images. Humans and Krell working together on construction projects. Zilvana and humans managing joint trade ventures. Even some footage of human scientists studying hive behavior to help them communicate better. We don't hold grudges, Myra continued. The Krell attacked our colony. We've already started joint training exercises with them. The Zilvana tried to enslave us economically. We're now helping them rebuild their economy through fair trade partnerships. The hive tried to eat us. We're offering to help them find sustainable food sources. The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. This makes no tactical sense. The Krell representative protested. It makes perfect human sense, Eon said. We won. Now we help. That's who we are. We're persistent predators, yes. But we're also persistence friends. Once we decide to befriend someone, we don't give up on that either. Elder Thez made a sound that might have been laughter. Do you see now? This is what I tried to warn you about. Humans are terrifying, not because of their weapons or their determination. They are terrifying because they will fight you, defeat you, and then immediately try to make you their friend. And somehow, it works. The speaker called for order again. What does the human delegation propose? Myra outlined a simple proposal. Any species that wished to ally with humanity would be welcomed. Past conflicts would be forgiven. Technology would be shared. Trade would be fair and open. But there were conditions. You must deal honestly with us, Myra said. You must respect our sovereignty, and we'll respect yours. You must never underestimate us again. Because while we're happy to be friends, we've proven we can be something else if necessary. And if species refuse alliance? Someone asked. Then we part peacefully, Eon said with a shrug. We won't force friendship any more than we'll accept subjugation. We'll simply go our separate ways. But understand this. The galaxy is becoming smaller. Eventually, we'll all need to work together. Humans learned that lesson on our own world thousands of years ago. The council debated for hours. In the end, most species agreed to formal alliance with humanity. The Krell were among the first to sign, recognizing that humans made better friends than enemies. The Zilvana, humbled but not broken, agreed to fair trade treaties. Even the Kikstari hive sent a communication accepting limited cooperation. A few species chose isolation, and humanity respected that choice. Come find us when you're ready, Mira told them. The offer stays open. After the official session ended, Elder Thos approached Admiral Yeon privately. Your species will either unite this galaxy or tear it apart, he said quietly. I am too old to know which path you will choose. Yeon smiled gently. We will choose wisely, Elder. Humans always do, eventually. We make mistakes. We learn from them. We try to do better. That's all any species can do. The young species think you are dangerous because of your strength, Thai said. I know you are dangerous because of your hope. You actually believe different species can work together. You believe today's enemy can be tomorrow's friend. You believe problems can be solved. This optimism, combined with your refusal to quit, makes you unstoppable. Is that a compliment or a warning? Eon asked. Both, Thaz replied. As all truths about humanity tend to be. Weeks later, on dozens of worlds, human children played with alien children. They taught each other games and languages. They shared food and stories. Adults watched these scenes with wonder and sometimes concern. On one human colony world, a Krell warrior stood guard next to a human soldier. An old Zilvana merchant shared tea with a human trader. A Kickstarry drone, separated from its hive for the first time, learned to communicate through a translator device built by human and alien engineers working together. The galaxy was changing. Species that had been alone or adversarial for millennia were learning to cooperate.